Today's video is going to be on kites. This is going to be our last shape. And just like the trapezoid, a kite is outside of the parallelogram family. So for the parallelograms, we have parallelogram, rectangle, rhombus, and square. Also a quadrilateral, because it has four sides, is a kite, but like the kite, it does, or like the trapezoid that we talked about before, it doesn't have two opposite sides being parallel, so it's not a parallelogram, so it does not have any of the parallelogram properties. What we do have for a kite is two distinct pairs of congruent consecutive sides. So if we look at what a kite looks like, two sides next to each other are going to be congruent. Those two will be congruent, and these two will be congruent. Consecutive means next to. Opposite angles on the short diagonal. So we've got diagonals connecting across. When the short diagonal is, these angles are going to be congruent to each other. So the angles on the short diagonal are congruent. The longer diagonal is the perpendicular bisector of the short one. Perpendicular meaning that we've got right angles. Bisector means it's going to bisect or cut that diagonal into two congruent pieces. The longer diagonal bisects the vertex angles, which means if this is my longer diagonal, these two angles are congruent and these two angles are congruent. Notice that the four of them are congruent. So this big angle does not have the same measure of this angle. They're separate angles, but each one of them are being bisected. So let's go ahead and look at what this means. Here is our kite. The short diagonal is SA. So if this is the short diagonal, this is the one perpendicular bisector. That also means that this big angle is congruent to this big angle. If this is the short diagonal, that means that the long diagonal is giving me two angle bisectors there. So we are given the measure of angle STA. So from S to T to A, this huge angle right here is 86 degrees. The measure of RAF, so RAF is 42. Find all the other angles. All right, so big misconception and big mistake is you say this is 42, this is 42. That's not true. These angles are being bisected. These are not. The opposite angles are congruent. So if this is 42, this is 42 down here as well, but I don't know that this is 42 and 42. What we can do is these are right angles, so this is 90. 90, 42, I can subtract 180 minus 90 minus 42 here to find the third angle in our triangle, which is 48. Now these are angle bisectors, so if that's 48, then this is also 48. Up here, we were given the large angle of 86. Well, it's being bisected, so half of 86 is 43 and 43. We're almost there. We've got the measure of this angle in here. So we have 180 minus the 90 here, minus the 43 up here. And that tells us the top portion of this angle is going to be 47. So if that's 47, then that's 47. So together we have marked all of the angles on our kite. Why don't you go ahead, press pause, and fill in all of the angles they're requesting. So we've filled in every number. Sometimes you may have to add or subtract or do something, but can you correctly identify the angles that they're asking you to find? So again, go ahead and press pause, and when you're done, press play again. All right, go ahead and check to see how you did. Again, a couple times we had to add. So on the bottom, this big angle ARS, 48 and 48 gave us 96. We had to add over here, 47 and 42 was 89. But otherwise, check to make sure that you correctly listed the angles that we did, and it was just about identifying the angles. Don't forget the middle letter is the vertex angle of the one that you are looking for. All right, so that was looking at the angle measures. Now let's look at the side lengths. Remember, in a kite, we have consecutive sides that are congruent. So those two sides are congruent, those two sides are congruent. We have LV as the short diagonal, which means that's perpendicular bisector. We want to find all of these side lengths. We think way back when to the Pythagorean theorem. We have these right angles. So we have these triangles. It's leg squared plus leg squared is equal to hypotenuse squared. So over here, leg squared plus leg squared is equal to the hypotenuse of GV squared. So that's 144 plus 256. Add those together to get 400. Now this is GV squared, so to find GV, we take the square root, and we find that this missing side is going to be 20. Now these two sides are congruent, so if that's 20, then that's 20 over there as well. And if you forgot, our diagonal, the short diagonal, is being bisected. So if this is 16, then this is 16, which is going to help us find this side over here. We have leg squared plus leg squared is equal to hypotenuse squared. So we have 256 plus EO squared. 34 squared is 1156. We move the 256 over to get 900, and again we want EO, not EO squared. We find that EO is going to be 30. And if this is 34, remember those sides are congruent, so this is going to be 34 as well. So let's look to see what they wanted us to find. We want to find GO. GO is this whole big segment. So to find GO, we have to add 12 that we were given plus the 30 we found. So GO is going to be equal to 42. Next, we want to find LV. So LV is that short diagonal, and because it was being bisected, we just had to double that 16 to find that the LV was going to be 32. And last, we want to find the perimeter of our kite. So to find the perimeter of GLOV, we add up all the sides. Perimeter is just adding up. So 20 plus 34 plus 34 plus 20. Remember, those two sides are congruent, those two sides are congruent. So you could have just said two sides of 20 and two sides of 34. Either way you do it, you find that the perimeter is going to be 108. So with kites, you want to remember there's two aspects of the kites. There's the aspect of looking at the angles and knowing which angles are congruent and which ones are being bisected. And then there's the side lengths, and we're going to apply the Pythagorean theorem because the diagonals are perpendicular to find all of our missing sides. And that's it for our video today.